See, another important topic we need to understand in EC2 is called security groups. Okay, security groups is nothing but your virtual firewall. Okay, what is security groups? This ideally here, if you see, right, this is nothing but your firewall. The firewall which decides for HTTP, right, and HTTP request coming in. I use only port 80. Only this is allowed. So if you are using an HTTPS, you have 443. Only traffic from 443 is allowed. Or if you're using an SSH, you see port 22 is allowed. Okay, so these rules are defined over here. And this can be called inbound and outbound rules both. But this ideally allows you what ports are open for connection. Not only that, you can also tell the origin of the request. For example, the origin of the request, you can put a range of IPs. If the request is coming only from that range of IP addresses, then it will accept, right? Otherwise, it will reject the connection. So that level of firewall we can implement using something called security group. I'll just show you the security group now. We'll configure a very simple security group to understand it further. Then we'll take it from there. So let's look at the description, what is given. So it actually controls the traffic. It only contains rules. And the rules can have an IP or via another security group. Okay. So I'll switch to our demo. Do you like doing it along with me, or is it okay if I continue displaying on my thing? So Vivek and Kumar, I see here. Do you guys like to continue do this lab along with me, or do you want me to show that you can do it later? How does it work for you?
I think you can show now. We can practice the same later.
Fantastic. All right. So for security groups, right? So what I did, let's just go back and go to the place where you launch instance. You remember step number 6, right? Whenever you launch instance 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So step number 6 is configuring your security group. So if I'm creating a new security group here, right? I have not added anything. By default, you can see SSH is enabled, right? And this is TCP protocol. For port 22 open for anyone to log into the machine, right? If you like to log into the machine, you need to enable SSH. The port 22 by default is added. So that is what we have been using in this machine as well, right? When we created the EC2 machine. So that's, I just created a new tab. So this is the instance we already created, right? I go to security, as I could see, this is my default security group which I got created, and it allows only port 22 for us. The inbound is allowed only on port 22, but from here, all outgoing is allowed. Okay, so let me come back here. If I want to host a website in my EC2 instance, what will I do? The security groups has to be modified. Okay, I'm going to add a role here in the security group, but I'm going to use an existing one here. See, if I use the existing one, I cannot choose, right? So to modify that, what I have to do is I have to go here because this is the instance which I already created. I go to this instance. From here, I go to security. From the security, I see something called security groups, right? Then I click on this. This will open that in another console called. This is a VPC console, but it's just all embedded. So now I can see the security groups. Now you can see it all the way here also, the security groups can be seen. Okay. So EC2 security group is the link. And when I click on that, I'll be able to edit this one, right? Edit inbound to rules. This is the first rule. 22 allowed for everyone. I'm going to add one more rule for HTTP. Okay, so the moment I chose an HTTP, the port 80 is enabled. Then I'm going to use the CIDR blocks, right? We'll come back and see what the CIDR block is. So the CIDR blocks is kind of a range of IP addresses to mention. So only requests coming in from that IP addresses will be allowed. Okay, I've added one for HTTP, or I will add it for HTTPS rather secure. Now what it says 443, and then say assume this is a database server, not a web server, right? So you're hosting something like a Redshift or RDS or any of it, right? So if I use a Redshift here, you can see the port 5439 is open. I can say this is accessible across all those things, right? But here I'm not using a Redshift. It's a simple, easy to machine. So I'm going to remove this one. I just showed you what are the different options that we have. Okay. Now I have enabled the HTTPS traffic. As you could see, this particular traffic is allowed so that if you are hitting a HTTPS URL, and it's going to work. Okay. So the default security groups, you can create multiple security groups, and security group can be used by more than one EC2 machine, right? You can create a one single security group. You can attach to more than one EC2 machine. So that's the reusable security groups that you can create. Okay. Coming back to our presentation. So now we understand what's a security group, how to add an inbound and outbound rules. The next one is little bit details that they've given, right? So here you can see the protocols chosen and the source. You can see this one, right? And this particular one allows you a connection from only one mission, right? If the login request is coming from only this machine, this IP address, then it accepts. Otherwise, it will not accept it at all. Okay, so here the same thing has been explained how a security group works, right? So we have inbound and outbound rules, right? The outbound rules, as I said, has been opened now. It can go to any port, to any machines. It can connect, but incoming requests are restricted. Only the computer, which you saw in the previous screen, is authorized to work on port 22. Only they can log into the machine using SSH. All other computers are not authorized to log into the EC2 machine. So that's what this picture shows you. Right. Now we have seen security groups, how to create, but let's look at some good to know stuff, right? Because security groups, there will be questions coming in where they'll see, I'm not able to connect to a website, and these are our security group, and you need to say, is that a valid one, correct one, or incorrect one, right? Or they'll give you the security group configuration. They'll ask you a question based on that. Will that work or not? The connection will be allowed or denied. This is what the questions will come. So understand a little bit more, go read about it before you go for the exam on security groups. I'm sure there will be a few questions coming in using this as well. Okay. So as I said, it's reusable. Remember, they don't call it as reusable, but I like to see this is a reusable, right? And the moment you say reusable, the same security group will be attached to multiple EC2 instances. Okay, but you can see this is locked to a VPC and a region, right? So if you are in a different VPC and different region, you have to create a different security group. Okay, so the security groups are in front of the computer, the virtual firewall, right? So there's a lot of requests which comes in. Not everything goes. Only one request, maybe on port 22, goes in. There will be a lot of other requests coming in, but you will never know. The EC2 machine will never receive the request. So it lives outside this EC2 machine as a firewall. Okay. And then, so when you create a default security group, all inbound is blocked, right? Then all outbound is allowed. Then by default, all inbound is blocked, all outbound is allowed. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. All right. So this picture shows that instead of giving you a source IPs, right? Let me also give you this example. Here, when I edit a rule right here. So I add another rule, say HTTPS or like an SSH on port 22. You can see, so you can also give a security groups from the source, right? I give any one of the security group. So I'm not given any IP. I'm not really literally allowed everyone to do that, but I chose my source for an security group, another security group. So what happens when I choose an security group rather than giving an IP? So this is what happens. As you could see, this is my main EC2 instance. As you could see, this is my firewall, right? So then what I allowed is I allowed port 22, for example, from this EC2 machine, right? Only this machine can log in. The second one, what I'm doing is I'm attaching that into another security group one. Okay, so what happens in that? Only requests coming in from that security group, right, will be allowed over here. Those will be a multiple firewalls. Those could be a firewall one, this could be a firewall two, right? When you choose another security group, the other security group is going to act like an additional security group. So any request coming in from there only will be allowed. So in case if there's a request coming in all the way, first it has to cross this, then it has to cross this. Even if it is added allowed here only, it will go on, right? So that helps to have a very good communication between couple of security groups, right? So how does it help in real-time scenario? I have two machines, right? I have two machines. So this is the web server. This is the database server, right? So what I can do is you have a security group two here, you have a SG1 here, right? This security group, you are allowing outbound connection only for DB connection, right? Then you can say the input for this can come only from the security group, nowhere else. So when you say only connection between this and this will work, and any connection coming from outside people, if this guy is trying to access it, will not work because the origin is totally different. So he is forbidden to make any request to the security group. Okay, so let me put this diagram clearly. When I have two servers, right? When you have two servers, what happens when you say the source is another security group, right? So that acts like an additional firewall for you.